Holy Spirit. There we go.
Yeah. Thank
All
you.
right. Hi, ladies. Wow, we've got 52 women, 56, 60. Wow.
Yes.
I feel like I just opened up the floodgates.
That's so fun watching everybody coming on in. So welcome to Edith Stein Online, and here with Katie Smith, our fearless leader, our executive director here at Endow. For all those who are tuning in who are new to Endow, we welcome you especially. I know we have a lot of familiar faces coming in, but I know many of you are brand new and encountering Endow for the first time. So we're very, very happy for that and hope that you're part of our family for a long time. And I'm also here with Teresa Hodgins, a friend of Endow, a worker at Endow, an author at Endow, an Edith Stein fangirl. We're going to sit at her feet largely today and learn from her, because when we talked about doing this Edith Stein thing, she said, can I be involved? Edith Stein, she just gets me. So we had to, we're grateful for that and had to bank on that and her wisdom. And then my name is Simone Rascala. I'm Director of Program Growth here at Endow. And, you know, I had planned, for those of you who follow Endow Weekly, which is our weekly newsletters based on our study guides that I write, I had planned after Catherine of Siena, pre-COVID, that the next study that I would write about would be Edith Stein. And that must have been a little Holy Spirit inspiration, God wink, because now that we have COVID, everybody's talking about Edith Stein. Femme Catholic did an Edith Stein study. The Avila Foundation last night, if you caught it, did an Edith Stein webinar. So this is the, Edith wants us to get to know her in this time especially. So we're super happy about this and very excited to dive in. So we're just gonna wait a couple more minutes so that more of you can join in. And I know many of you are going to be watching this recording at home later, which is awesome. So just some clarifying notes. This is not going to be an Endow study like the Rosary webinar that just wrapped up last week. For those of you who are tuning in, this is a different format. So this is going to be formally informal. So with the Rosary webinar, that was kind of a more formalized virtual webinar where we actually did an Endow study, where we read from the text out loud together and answered the exact questions. That was a very, very beautiful experience with our study on John Paul II's Rosary. This format for the next 8 weeks, because there's 8 chapters in the Edith Stein study, is going to be an accompaniment to your self-study. So you may be studying her through reading the Endow weekly newsletters, which if you're not subscribed, you definitely are welcome to subscribe. Most of you have gotten the Edith Stein study guide and are reading along week by week with us. So today we're going to be specifically discussing chapter 1. And for those of you that don't know this, we have chapter 1 as a free download on our website that you can look at. Although I think most of you have purchased the book. And then, of course, every woman is welcome, whether you're reading the Endow Weekly newsletter or not reading along in the book. If you're just tuning in to hear conversations about Edith Stein because you just want to learn a little bit more about her and just tune in, you are welcome, and there's no pressure for any of the other stuff. So everybody's welcome. We look forward to this conversation. We're gonna please be a little kind and send us a lot of grace, because this is the first time that we're doing this format as well. So we're gonna be pretty much fine tuning it as the weeks go, as we figure out better and better ways to do this. But our hope is that the 3 of us can have a conversation about Edith Stein based on our study guide, and then interact with you as much as possible. So sending in your comments, your questions. And so as much as possible, despite the limitations of technology, we can be interacting with each other and having this conversation with each other each week in this webinar. And of course, you're welcome to email us at info@endowgroups.org to send feedback or questions or comments. You can email Teresa directly, you can email me directly, you can email Katie directly. So this is a friendship and a accompaniment together. Except for maybe Teresa, I know Katie and I are not Edith Stein experts. We love her. What we know of her is great, but we are actually very authentically on this path with you. So nobody here is a lecturer or teacher. This is us accompanying each other together with Edith Stein to learn more about her and to grow into our own personal vocations, our own unique feminine genius. And so we can become a little bit closer to the Lord and closer to discovering who we are as women before God and before each other. So with that, Katie, practicals, please, about how to go about doing this successfully online.
We know our gifts and talents well. So we are looking forward to all of you being able to participate this time in some way, shape, or form. So you can continue to ask questions through the Q&A. For those of you who joined in the Rosary Study, that's definitely a way to ask questions. You can also ask questions by raising your hand. We can't see you at all, and even if we call on you, we can only hear your voice. So if you haven't had your tea or coffee this morning, that might be a good time to grab some. But what will happen is there's a little hand. If you look at the very bottom of your Zoom screen, there's a little hand. It looks kind of like it's waving, saying hi. Click on that, and that's you raising your hand, and then I'll be able to see that, and we can call on you and allow you to come in. We'd love if you'd introduce yourself and ask your question and make your comment. We will probably discuss just highlights from the topics for about 20 minutes, and then bring everybody in for a discussion. We do have 167 at this point women participating, which is amazing and awesome. And part of the reason why we changed from a meeting to a webinar, because we wouldn't be able to see all 167 of you all at once. So we will try to get through as many questions and as many comments as possible. If not, I strongly encourage you to join our Facebook group. So it is a closed group for your protection and for ours. We will have a link on our store that will allow you to submit your information to join that Facebook group. So if you don't get a chance to ask your questions now, like I said, we strongly encourage you to do that. There's about a 24-hour turnaround time between when you submit your request and when we allow you in, but anything longer than that tends to kind of kick you out of Facebook. So if you don't get in the first time, let us know and we'll try to keep entering you. And I think that's it. We can get to Edith.
All right, Teresa, take it away.
All right, take it away. I also don't claim to be an expert. She wrote a lot of things and it was a very, very intelligent woman. But she found me in college when I got God was pursuing me in college, is basically how this goes. But I got randomly invited at the last minute to go to World Youth Day in Cologne with a group that my aunt and uncle knew. I knew no one in the group, but I wanted to go to Cologne, so I went and befriended a Carmelite friar who was traveling with the group. And on one of the days of the trip, he said, "I'm going to go visit the Carmelite cloister here in Cologne because it's where this person named Edith Stein was." And I was like, I know, I've heard that name before, right? Like maybe a little bit, but I knew nothing about her. But I went to this convent and basically from there started to learn about her and her life. And she just, I mean, the more I learned, the more she's become my friend. So I hope that she will become each of your friends as we go along, because I think she's really cool. But so I wanted to start off talking in chapter 1. I think chapter 1 is a really good introduction to kind of her as a person, and as kind of you get a sense of her young life, her family life. She was the baby of a large family, a large Jewish family, which her Jewish roots, her Jewish heritage was very much a part of who she is, and I think that is clear in the chapter. And so you get introduced to her as a child, and then through her kind of entering university is basically where it's taken us up to in chapter 1. But one of the most interesting things I found in chapter 1, my kind of biggest takeaway was towards the end. There was something that I sort of was like, that's the person that is my friend, right? Is as she was entering college, she couldn't decide whether she wanted to study literature and literature or philosophy. And I just, that resonated with me because I also love both of those things, and felt like the way that she approaches literature was to kind of see the greater questions in it, literature and theater. If you have our study in front of you, on page 15, there's a quote from one of her studies that I kind of wanted to point out. She says, it's the quote that starts, "Even more than reading, I enjoyed going to the theater." She says, "Then at the end of it, I became totally immersed in the happenings on the stage, and the humdrum of every day disappeared." And that was kind of her entrance into the questions of life, right? And that, I don't know, I just felt like that kind of was my, like, yes, like as a teenager, I don't think I knew it, but that reading literature, reading good books was a way to enter into the questions of life that were beyond my everyday at high school. So that was kind of my main takeaway from the chapter. What things did you guys feel like spoke to you about her?
Simone, do you want to go ahead?
In a similar way, I was really struck by how, she's a fascinating woman, right? Because her personality, this is going to sound kind of stereotypical, was more of like an engineering type personality. She wasn't like a girly girl type, but her interests were, because you kind of think like, here's this like girl genius philosopher type who like reads Shakespeare to like wind down from the day, like, but then it was music and theater that set her alive into these bigger philosophical questions. So I think regardless of whether any woman, any Catholic woman, or any woman out there, like whatever kind of type of woman that you are, there's like something for everybody in Edith Stein. And she's just so fascinating. So, and I was very, very struck by, and I mentioned this in Endow Weekly about how music was the consolation to her bouts with depression. That the encounter with beauty through music changed everything for her. And also, and this is what made me feel like, yay, Endow women friendships, was when it says here that, but if the world might be evil, but if the small group of friends in whom I had confidence and I strove with all our might, we should certainly have done with all the devils. I thought that is so true. That's what I think of in a little Endow group, about like this small group that is the power of hope in a group of friends. And then I thought about the apostles and how they were friends and how they had the whole entire Roman Empire, the most powerful empire, against the small little group of Christians. But then they ended up changing history and changing the world. So there's like so much power in the things that seem so powerless in this time, right? Friendship, music, these are not things that the world considers powerful, but these are actually the most powerful things that we have at our disposal. So that struck me.
Yeah, I think for me it was the relationship of her mom, like reading the introduction and hearing about what her mom went through. And her mom basically, when there were no businesswomen around, had to become like this strong, kick butt, take names businesswoman. And you can see how that impacted Edith as well. And in the meantime, like while her mom is going through all these things, they were able to maintain culture in their home, which is just so crazy to think like that held a place of primacy for them, that encountering truth, beauty, and goodness in cultural things like theater and music, that was just as equally as important as like putting bread on the table. And I think sometimes we miss that so easily, like we just get caught up in the day-to-day of work, and especially right now, like make everything run, and we forget to have those encounters with truth, beauty, and goodness.
Yeah, and making it intentional, because right. and for me, okay, I'm a professional church person where I'm like, yes, everyone focus on the true, the good, and the beautiful. But then I have to stop and think, but am I living the good life? Am I living beauty? Am I living, these things? So I was really provoked to like examine my own life and say, my life ought to be beautiful, otherwise what am I evangelizing anyway? So.
Yeah. I ought to take the time to read good literature because it takes me out of the humdrum of every day, or to listen to great works of music, or go to the theater, things that that it seems like those are the first things to go, right? Oh, I'm too busy busy for those things, right?
Yeah. I mean, even right now, I found myself, because of listening to like what's going on in the economy and what you need to do as someone running a business, I found myself just listening to the news nonstop to hear like, okay, what are they going to do next? What's the next rule? When's this going to be lifted? And like, that's time I could be listening to music. I could be listening to a much more enriching podcast, but and half the time what I'm listening to just is not, it's just a bunch of irrelevant stuff anyway.
Yep.
It's on repeat, right?
Yep. Yeah, someone just had a really good comment about, additional resources. Thank you, Simone. If you do have additional resources, we'll include them in our store next to in the page that talks about the webinar. So, yeah.
Great.
All right.
We are starting to get some awesome questions and attendees. So there's someone who asked in the Q&A first, and then someone else who just raised their hand. So I'll get to the Q&A first, and then go to the person who raised their hand. So this person says, in our generation, it's hard to have beauty when we busy ourselves too much. How do we make time for that? Tips on prioritizing that.
That's such a good, that's something we all struggle with.
It's a hard one because American culture is not designed for leisure. It's not designed for culture. It's very utilitarian, insanely busy. I really recommend this podcast by Matt Fradd that I just listened to. It's a 3-hour podcast, so it's an investment, but I think it's well worth it. Break it up in chunks, wash dishes while you listen. Why did I love it? Because it's called anxiety, trauma, addiction, but what I loved about it, particularly the first hour in it, was that we have this underlying anxiety in American culture, particularly because of technology, because of the busyness, because of the worship of work and utilitarianism, where we do not have, you can't just throw your kids outside to play anymore. There's all these things you have to think about all the time. You have long commutes, you have all these. So how do you fight against a culture which doesn't promote a life of leisure and a life of beauty and arts? I think we just have to first believe that God wants us to have a life that is dedicated to culture and the arts. So with that starting point, with that assumption that this is actually something that God wants, right? Then that can induce some prayer and reflection over what in my life is not essential, where in my life can I be creative and find these times to read literature, to have. So I just did a Zoom meeting with my friends where we performed a Shakespeare play, Twelfth Night. We did that last week, which made me really happy because when I read chapter 1 of Edith Stein and she said she reads Shakespeare, for fun, that was her Netflix and chill or whatever. I was like, wow, okay. I was feeling really cultured, but to make that, it was a sacrifice for me to make that time 3 hours to read Shakespeare over Zoom with my friends. And we do Friday night poetry slams over Zoom now, right? But to say, this is a value, this is important, this contributes to my humanity. Then when it becomes something where I truly believe it's valuable, suddenly I have time to do it. Right. So that's what I've been doing recently. My Friday night poetry slams and my Zoom Shakespeare reading. So it's a little different in COVID, but.
Well, we're going to say,
I feel like COVID has made it easier in some ways, or made us more aware of the leisure time that we have. Mm-hmm. And then I wonder if when we leave quarantine, I hope that we'll stick with some of those things.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, we have Christine has had her hand up for a while. Christine, I'm going to click allow you to talk now. So here we go.
Yay!
All right, Christine, you're on with us.
Hi, Christine.
Oh, I need to unmute you. Hang on. You're still muted. There we go. Now we should be able to reach us. Hi, Christine.
Good morning. How is everybody? Or good afternoon. My daughter and I are participating in this together, and I have to laugh about the time frame because we thought that it started at 11 Eastern time, so we we messed that up. But anyway, it's all good. Just a comment and then a more kind of boring question. But my comment is that, you know, during these times, I'm like you all, you know, we're all sort of church ladies and very involved in what we're doing in the church, but I wasn't making time to pray. And so now here we have this time on our hands, and, you know, praise God, we're taking advantage of that and finding the beauty in that time to just be with the Lord through a great book that I'm using. And so to your point, it's so important to make sure that not only are we doing the work, but if we don't have a relationship with him, then what are we doing?
Yeah, then what are we doing? Exactly.
So my very mundane question is just, do you recommend that we read the chapters beforehand?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The simple answer is yes, because we won't be reading them like a typical Endow study.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We have one more question that I'll get to in a minute. We've had a lot of questions about the different resources. So the Matt Frad podcast, we will include that in our list of resources. And then there's a lot of questions about recommendations for good literature. And so I know Teresa and Simone will have some good, I have some good
We'll have
recommendations
fun with that
myself. But then also, yeah, join our Facebook group and make some comments. We can share what books we've been reading. And I think it would be really fun to see, to see what.
Yeah, we need a thread for that because I'm always looking for recommendations too.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to allow Teresa to talk, and then let's see here. I am going to try to see, Christine, if we can get you. I'm going to try to hit remove, and hopefully I don't kick you out. I apologize profusely if
Come back in if we do.
Yeah.
And thanks for everyone's patience for this first round as we figure all this out.
Never mind, Christine, you're just going to stay up. All right. Teresa, here you go.
Just making sure you're not talking about me. Teresa O'Brien, you're on.
Yeah. Hi, Teresa.
Hi. It's really interesting that you were saying about Teresa, hi, about the difference in COVID, because I just read an article on Alatea. I have no idea how to pronounce that magazine name, but
yeah, it's a hard one.
Yeah, it's titled 9 Reasons Why Your Kids Might Be Thriving in Quarantine.
Yeah.
And it's so, basically the conclusion is that, you know, kids need time with their parents and with their siblings. They need downtime and free time, unscheduled and unstructured learning and playtime. And it's like this is news. But in our so scheduled world, they don't have this. And I think, and I don't know about anybody else, but I have been so happy that kids have been home with their parents for the last 5 weeks. Like,
yeah.
Anything else that's going on in the world, you know, could be bad, but this is amazing and good, and I'm so happy for all the kids. And I'm sorry, moms, if you have little ones and you're feeling like you're going crazy, but it's but it's really so good for both moms and dads and their kids. And I'm but so I also wanted to say that, like, we could keep this going. Well, the article talks about, you know, these are the things that are good for the kids and that has been happening. So how can you keep some of this going when COVID is over? And I'm thinking, well, you can keep all of it going if you homeschool.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
And then you also have the added bonus that they're not getting indoctrinated with any values or ideas that, you know, you disagree with. And so, like, I'm a huge advocate of homeschooling. I didn't homeschool my kids until they were in middle school, and then I did it through high school, which is like so important. But I just thought it was so neat that this article is pointing out all these just basic truths about what kids need and how it's kind of like, yes, and nice reminder, and yay, kids are getting this.
Yeah.
Maybe we can keep some of it going.
I think everyone will be thinking through ways, the good and the bad, right? Is that COVID is a bad thing, and the quarantine is really hard in a lot of ways, because social interaction is necessary too. But it is good for families to spend time together, and hopefully, we can all figure things out.
Well, I think the word that you used, Teresa, that really resonated with me is the word unstructured, because as a high school, I don't have children, but as a high school teacher, how stressful it is to wake up super early, to get to the school bus, to go to school, to then have the pressure to be awesome at sports after school, to rush home, scarf down dinner, quickly do your homework. There's really nothing built in for prayer, for winding down time, for authentic human connection, and then for unstructured play. And then we have a country where, I'm obviously speaking from American context because I know some women are tuning in outside of the United States, but the highest rate of prescriptive drugs and opioids and depression and anxiety. And we need medication for those things legitimately, but we can't pretend that a lot of that is the case, a lot of the depression, anxiety, because human dignity has been assaulted by work, that even sports has become an agenda, a work. So that word you use, unstructured playtime, where you can just play and be, is essential to human dignity. And when we don't build that time in, what we're saying is that your value as a human is determined on what you can produce.
Utilitarianism.
And that's the biggest lie. And then we have Sundays that are not really true Sabbaths and Sundays. We have Sundays that are catch-up days and not really leisurely. And if it's not leisurely, it's certainly not worshipful to God.
And we as adults struggle to know how to fit culture into our lives, right? Because this is how we train our children to live, right? Like, we don't teach them to value leisure because we don't spend time in leisure, like on leisure or culture activities.
Yeah.
We've got quite a few hands up. So Valerie, I'm going to let you in and unmute you right now. So go ahead, Valerie.
Hiya, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm actually calling from outside the United States. I'm calling from London.
Hey, awesome.
And I was going to say, I'm actually really excited about Edith Stein because.
Oh no.
Uh-oh, hang on.
Come back.
But why?
I'm going to mute myself.
Uh-oh, hang on. I'm going to hit mute and unmute and see. There we go. Okay, Valerie, try one more time. Let's see if we can get this to work.
Hear me?
Oh, yes, there we go. Great.
Yeah, sorry. So I'm just really excited about her because she went to university and she enjoyed academia and she kind of wasn't afraid to be outspoken and actually stopped praying deliberately for a while just to test herself. There's so much about her that I kind of not identify with, but yeah, maybe identify with. Just so different from the other saints. So I just want to say how excited I am about the study, and about kind of being able to see you guys.
Yeah, thank you for joining us from London. That is awesome. Yeah, she's so authentic, Edith. She didn't believe in God, so she stopped praying. She's an authentic person.
Yeah. And just how she valued education and how kind of secular society didn't scare her, and she engaged with it and then made it better.
Yeah, there was a really good comment that was made in the book of one of her professors, just very short and to the point. I think it said, "The lady is well informed in general."
Yeah.
I know. I love that.
If that was said about me, I would take it as a great compliment.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Valerie. Well, we're going to go on to Linda next. Linda, hang on just one second.
Oh, Linda, I know Linda.
Okay,
Yay.
Linda, you are on and unmuted. Oh, no, wait a minute. Hang on. Come on, Linda. All right.
Well, we get Linda sorted out. I just feel like she has such personality traits of Edith Stein. It's like she's just like, she knows what she wants and she goes and gets it. Or she knows she doesn't believe in God, so she stops praying, right? Like, she knows she wants to go to university, so only a couple women are there. Who cares? I'm going. Like,
my mom was laughing that the women who were part of the elite group of women who were studying would go into medicine, but the philosophy and psychology was like for men. It was just such a kind of funny little thing, because you don't think about in a stereotypical kind of sexist environment, you would think, oh, send the women to study literature and let the men do the medicine, but it was actually reverse then. So I think that's kind of interesting.
Okay, we're going to move on to Gwen. Linda, I'm so sorry we lost you there for a minute. Raise your hand again and we'll get you back on. Gwen, I'm going to hit allow to talk, and hopefully this time it actually works. Oh, come on. There we go. Gwen, you should be able to talk.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you
Hi.
hear
Oh, yep, Gwen, we should be able to
Gwen?
hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yep.
Still?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so I hit you something on chat. That I grew up Jewish. My whole family is Jewish. And I married somebody Catholic, and his family is very devout.
Oh. Oh no. Okay. Come back to us.
We're so sorry, guys, about these technical difficulties.
Yeah. Wait just a second and see if she pops back on.
All I got was all I heard her say was that she's Jewish from a Jewish family.
Yeah.
That's all I got. Shoot.
Okay, let's try one more time. All right,
Raise your hand
Linda,
again.
you're back.
Oh, me?
Yes. Oh,
no,
sorry.
different Linda.
Different
Oh,
Linda. Linda, you had your hand raised too. Sorry.
Okay, it's a great name.
Yeah. We can let you go now, unless you had a question.
Yeah, I hope to hear from Linda 1 also.
Okay, great. Other Linda, jump back on.
I just wanted to share a little thoughts on what the arts are about. I was a music education major, and the arts exist as a positive place to explore your emotions. And that's in a way why Edith Stein was so rounded in who she was, because even though she was, I also come from a family of engineers, and my brothers were very angry that I didn't go into engineering. And I tested out of all my math in college. I wanted to do music. So I can relate to Edith Stein in that sense, but I went the other route. At any rate, so it's really important for us as parents to explore for ourselves our own emotions and become aware in that through the arts, and to demonstrate that to children so that they too can learn who they are through their emotions. And that leads to deeper and greater relationships, especially with our faith, because you can't see your emotions, you feel your emotions. You can't see God, but you feel his presence. So I just wanted to share that as an insight.
Linda, I love that. And it makes sense, right? When it talks about how she is a very sensitive child and a very sensitive person. Like, we'll learn in the next chapter. She writes her doctoral dissertation on the problem of empathy, which is feeling with other people, like how we feel with other people. Like, she felt things so deeply and felt with other people so deeply that she needed to know how it worked, kind of thing. And I think we also see how music helped her to do that and helped her to feel her own feelings, and that kind of she clearly understood that, but I at least had not put kind of it in that sense as a positive place to explore your emotions. I'm gonna have to think about that a lot. Thank you.
Thanks,
You're welcome.
Linda.
I was also struck by, in exploring this, that it was the music, the sensitivity of the music, which helped her, I don't know how the word, dispel the lie that reality is something negative.
Mm.
So the negativity she was feeling about the world and about her environment, and then the encounter with Bach and the encounter with music helped her process then that intellectual truth that within her small group of friends that she could affirm the goodness of reality. So thank you, Linda. That was lovely.
Thanks, Linda.
Thank you. God bless.
You too. All right, we're gonna do one more. There's one more person with their hand up, so we're gonna take that question, and then we have 26 open questions in the Q&A. I don't know if we'll get to all of them in the next 10 minutes.
Awesome.
But if not, we will definitely write them down and follow up with you afterward. So Nancy, you have your hand up. I am going to allow you to talk. All right, Nancy.
Okay.
Hi, Nancy.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, hello. Thank you for doing this. I think this is just a wonderful idea, and I'm looking forward to the next few weeks. Just one question on point of order, and then I wanted to get your impressions on something else. But are we going to go through a chapter a week? Is that the general plan?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Very good. And then my other question, I was hoping each of you could speak to this. It talks about how when Edith was 14 years old, she went to live with her oldest sister who was going to have a baby. And it seemed that, she was an obedient child. It seemed like she was beautifully practicing the Jewish faith as a child up till the age of 14. And then she went to live with her sister, and then it's like a light bulb switched off. She just didn't continue practicing. And I know for a lot of us that when we graduate from high school and we go off on our own, go to college or whatever, so few people continue practicing their faith once they're out on their own. But I just wondered what your thoughts were on, why that was that she stopped practicing the Jewish faith once she went to live with her sister.
I mean, it provoked me too. I thought it was quite mysterious, and I'm curious to read her own, more of her own words than that. I'm sure in her own autobiography and whatnot, there's probably more information there. So speaking just directly from this text, it seemed to me it really does show the power of the environment and the formation. So what I make up in my mind about why that happened was that for her to see her sister and brother-in-law living the good life well, and living it well without religion, then religion became something unnecessary. And so if there's, for her being such an intellect and a sensitive person, the sensitive part being that, well, I'm young and I'm influenced. Like, the young are very easily influenced, number one. Number two, it seems like for someone with such an intellectual giant, even at such a young age, that if there's no real rational reason to practice, and I see that these people are living their life well without it, well, that just doesn't seem necessary anymore. Because, I mean, I think we'll get to this later in the book, and I haven't read chapter 2 yet. I haven't read the study. I'm reading it along with everybody else. But knowing what I know about her later conversion, came through the intellectual, right? It came through the witness of the Christians, the philosophers, but it was intellectual too. So I have a feeling that that's around more of an explanation of why. Well, tell me why I should, is what I imagine Edith Stein would say.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Simone is, I mean, 100% yes, environment affects us. I also think taking into account her personality is really important, and like kind of the stage in life that she was in was, I mean, she is very intelligent, right? But she's 14 and she decides to quit school because it's not interesting. Like she, I mean, and at that point, I think her mother kind of realized, like, must have realized, like, what is this girl doing, you know? But at the same time, she valued Edith's freedom and allowed her the freedom to kind of explore outside of school, right? And different options in life. But at the same time, I think was, and so, I mean, you know, who knows what Mrs. Stein was thinking at that point. But I think she probably also realized that this was a possibility, but that her daughter needed to make a choice on her own, right? And that I feel like she had to have known her well enough to know that when she was ready, she would come back to God. Just knowing, you know, from Edith's description of her mother and her piety and her devotion, is that she basically says that she always admired her mother's devotion and that found that kind of the discipline of it very moving, but that she was not herself moved by it. And so I think, I don't know, it coming down to like realizing that this girl had to find God on her own, right? I don't know if you got the chance to read the appendix that was sort of part of this chapter, that was the canonization. It was the homily from the canonization of Edith Stein. But John Paul II gives a beautiful reflection on how throughout her life we see her as someone who is dedicated to freedom and the search for truth, and that eventually leads her to realize that only by loving we can be truly free. And I don't know, I'm basically just pointing you to that, and kind of it's sort of I don't know, it's related to the initial question, is just like that through seeking truth, that she eventually came back to God, and that freedom, that her freedom from her mother not pushing her to pray, to allowing her to make that decision to go live with her, to leave school and help her sister and then not pray, eventually allowed her to come back to God in a deeper way, in a more authentic way.
But it does show how important environment is, right? Because yes, you can't trick kids, right? Like if what you're evangelizing is not actually the gospel, but forms of Christianity, more, you know, moralistic forms of Christianity, that's not what is attractive. Like as a theology teacher, my students know, okay, I can teach them theology, or they really see there's a Christian teaching them theology, right? And they're either provoked by that authenticity or not. And that, yeah, I think, so, you know.
I mean, and I think Edith saw, like, she didn't see Judaism as enough for her. Like, it wasn't complete, right? It's not complete. It's still waiting for the Messiah, right? And she wasn't satisfied with that, I think. And that was, you know, I mean, that was part, like, I don't, that both environments were not enough. And she continued seeking for that authenticity, I think.
Awesome. Well, we have a lot of questions. I think we can probably only get to one of them, but we will definitely follow up with all of you. This was a cool question from Catherine. She says, I find it inspiring that Edith was a natural seeker of truth and beauty. Do you think we are all like that, or some of us have to work harder to desire truth and beauty?
Oh, what a great question. How mysterious. It's so mysterious. I mean, it's a mysterious question. Teresa, what do you say?
I think we all naturally seek, I mean, I don't know, working hard, right? It is so mysterious. There is a natural desire for truth, beauty, and goodness. But I think people are attracted to different aspects of truth, beauty, and goodness differently. Like, if that makes sense. So like one person may find truth in music. Another person may find it in philosophy or literature or the outside world. Like, it just, but there's going to be something in creation that speaks to everyone.
Yeah, I would agree with that in terms of every person has a motivational design. Are you motivated by the good? Are you more motivated by the true? Are you motivated by the beautiful? I think our natural temperament is geared toward one or the other. You can kind of we can see in each other, like, this person's like that, well, what's the truth behind that? Or that was really beautiful, I'm moved, and like, so I think on a natural personality level, there is a motivational desire that is towards one of the true, the good, the beautiful, and so forth. But and then to add to that layer, as baptized Christians, then we have the charisms. Some people have a charism for truth and knowledge and study, and others for service, right? So there's those elements as well. But I think on a natural human level, the short answer, the uncomplicated answer is yes. If you are a being, your big question at the end of it all is why, right? Little babies, why? Seeking truth, seeking meaning. The difficulty is that, and I remember, when I was a teacher, sorry, I go back to teaching because my kids are the students were the main little human persons I've been dealing with the last 6 years. But, when they would demonstrate to me incredible intellectual curiosity, my mentor would say, congratulations, because I would be proud of them. Like, look, they're showing this beautiful intellectual curiosity. And my mentor would say, congrats, all you've done as a teacher is not tamper with the very thing that God already naturally gave in them, which is a curiosity in front of life. Great. I didn't mess them up. Because I helped them, but I didn't mess them up. But I think our culture is a numbing culture instead of being a provocative culture that is leisurely and cultured and geared toward the true, the good, and the beautiful, and helps a natural human being with natural intellectual curiosity look at from the world and say, what does it mean, right? Like, Edith Stein is this like incredible provocative personality and saint, but like on a human level, we are all seekers of truth, but our culture is not one that's, sadly, we're not in a good culture that makes it easy to seek truth or make truth easy to find. And then in families, right, that has its own challenge as well. Is the family setup designed for that personal vocation to arise? Is it set up for inquiry and intellectual inquiry? Is it set up to engage in question and answer? So oftentimes parents will have emailed me saying, like, give me the answers I can give to my kids. And I thought, I can give you the answers to religious stuff. I don't have the answers to science and other things. But why don't you take a journey with them and show your children that you as an adult are also a child in front of God on the path to the true, the good, and the beautiful. And in that way, our life doesn't just become a dry, here's the answer, just live it, but a journey we all take together toward God. So that's my answer. Both and. Yes, and.
Wonderful. Well, we have a lot of other questions. We'll definitely get to you via email, and we will send out the link for the Facebook group. It will also be posted on our Shopify site, so our store as well, where you'd go to buy the book. Love all of the questions. This has been a lot of fun to have a discussion with you ladies and actually hear some of your voices after so long, getting to participate. But we're grateful. And for those who we may have not gotten to answer your question, or you raised your hand and I hit the wrong button, I'm so sorry. Please email me. Email us at info@endowgroups.com and we will, or .org, and we will get back to you, I promise. But yeah, just thank you so much for joining us, ladies. A reminder that next week we will be reading chapter 2. So for next week, move on to chapter 2. The reminder will come as well to read that will come a day before the podcast, or a podcast, we could do a podcast, a day before Edith Stein Online. So as you get the Zoom link, look at the very top and it'll say, please read chapter, 2, 3, 4, but we'll follow sequentially from now on. So email us with any questions. Thank you so much, ladies.
Thank you. And
Thank
please,
you.
yeah, and sorry, real quick, please consider attending our virtual conference on the Holy Spirit. So we'll talk more about that next week since we're running a little late today, but please consider joining us on that very special day. So
yeah,
thank you.
Yeah. All right, wonderful, ladies. Well, we will sign off and see you all next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.